Hey everyone, this is a complete cleaning guide for your Leopard Gecko enclosure. I've done a video like this before, but I thought I'd show you a little bit more in detail. Make sure the water is always warm. Don't use chemicals at all. Always warm, hot water. This what you're seeing here is you need a place for your Leopard Gecko to stay while its home is being cleaned. So this is just like a deli dish or something like that with holes poked into it. This is just somewhere where she could hang out while the enclosure is being cleaned. Just make sure you always dry your things that are being cleaned because there might be some traces of leftover things in there. And just basically stick some tissue in there after you're done cleaning it, and then she can stick around in there for a little bit while the enclosure is being cleaned out. So this is what it looks like right here. Just cleaned out, a couple holes punched on the top. And this is part of the process. You have almost the entire thing emptied out. You got to take everything out. As you can see, it's really dirty, so I kind of did that on purpose. You shouldn't do that. Always clean it out regularly. Don't leave it to be that dirty. So this shit is just hanging out in there for now. I'll take her out and get this thing cleaned up. So right now, just make sure everything is being taken out. I'm taking her out right here, and I'm going to put her into that dish that I cleaned out with warm water, no chemicals. Always have to remind people of that because you use chemicals and then that will end up killing your leopard gecko. So I'm just going to take her out really quick here, put her into her temporary home. Now, when you take these things out, you can do one of two things: either clean them or put them back in. I always recommend to clean them because you want to make sure everything is nice and clean when it goes back in. And like I said, you just use warm water, hot water if you can, just really hot water, and an old toothbrush or something that you haven't used. In this water dish, you want to clean the water dish. You want to make sure you take that out and clean it. Now this here, I'm just using an old container from some mealworms, just rinsed out with hot water. Always rinse out and clean everything first. And that's a pot down there with the grate of the top of the enclosure. It's the top grate, and I've showed a method on doing this in a previous video. Just scoop it out, dump it in. It's actually a really good idea to sift out the sand, and then as you tap it, you'll see all the nasty poop and whatever else that gets left behind on top of the grate, and you end up with clean sand in the bottom. So it's actually a really good method if you're using sand. Just make sure when you tap it in, it just goes into the pot, and you can see all that nasty stuff that was in that sand. So after you're done doing that, you should scoop out pretty much all the sand. You should be scooping out everything. It's all about just dumping it back in. And as you can see, it gets very dusty. I've mentioned this also in another video. Make sure you're doing this in a ventilated area, because it does get very dusty. The windows are open in my room, so because all that dust, you don't want to breathe this stuff. You really don't. So just dump it in there. And this part I don't really like doing. You're gonna have to do it. Just take your hand and just spread it around like I'm doing there. Make sure you get a nice even layer throughout the whole enclosure. Nice and even. I use sand because it's a good heat distributor. So I always start off with the water bowl first, making sure it's nice and clean, just so I can put the water in there right away. And I always use filtered water. In that water bottle there is filtered water, using things like bottled water works, that's filtered. I don't really use tap water because of the fact that it's got contaminants that I don't really want to use. And then just putting in the moist hide here. I have a video on how to make that moist hide. You can refer to that by clicking in the annotation. There's going to be a box right around that moist hide there. You can just click on that. And that's just a log where she can hide on the cool side of the tank. This tree that I'm putting in here is on the warm side of the tank, and she likes to go in there. And I always leave the tank around 85 degrees on the warm side. It's a good 80, around 80 degrees on the cool side. There she goes, in she goes. And she's really happy in there now. It's nice and clean. As you can see, there are some leftover debris. The sifting method is basically just to get out all the big poop